So welcome, I'm Sophie Mather. I'm the Executive Director of the Microfibre Consortium, and I want to start by kicking us off and introducing you to your chair for today's session. So I want to pass over to Dr. Katie Stevens. Katie, we're really honoured to have Katie with us today, and Katie brings a real wealth of topic experience into today's forum. As part of her role with the EOG, the European Outdoor Group, she's really championed this topic through 3 different lenses to date. Following on from work in this topic ahead of the formation of the Microfibre Consortium, EOG collated and managed the pre-runner, the Outdoor Microfibre Consortium, which I know some of you here today were part of. The organisational support enabled the scaling of this work and members and the visibility across this topic across key stakeholders. EOG then went on as a founding member of the cross-industry agreement on microfibres, and also Katie in a personal capacity as co-founder of the Microfibre Consortium when we formed back in 2018. So a real topic champion, and really excited to have her with us today. Also on the call, we have got Flourish CSR, who have been very much working with me behind the scenes, preparing all the material that you're going to be seeing today in preparation for the commitment and the roadmap launch. So they will be with us presenting this afternoon. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Katie to take us through from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie, for the very kind introduction. It's really an honour to be here and to be involved in this event, so thank you for the invitation. As you mentioned, this is a topic that I've been following for a long time within my role at the EOG, kind of on an industry level, at a policy level through the work of the cross-industry agreement, but also, as you said, personally as a co-founder and member of the board of the Microfibre Consortium. And I know that the work of the Microfibre Consortium is very valuable for the industry, and it's been great to see TMC achieve so much in such a short time. And I'm very excited to see what happens next following the launch of the Microfibre 2030 commitment and roadmap, which we're going to see today. And I think this is such a desperately needed initiative, which will really help to enable the industry to take an impactful and coordinated approach on this topic. So what are we going to see in the next hour? Well, we're going to start with Sophie, who's going to walk us through kind of, where we are on this topic today and tell us more about the challenge that we're all facing. We're going to then hear from Sophie, but also from Trudy Watson from TMC, and also Tara Lutman from Flourish, who are going to introduce the commitment and roadmap and what this provides for us as an industry. We're then going to hear from Tom Dempsey, who is the California Oceans Program Director at the Nature Conservancy, and he's going to be talking to Sophie. And finally, we're going to hear from Louise Macabre from Flourish, who's going to tell you all about the next steps for signatories. I think you'll all agree that we have a very exciting and interesting programme, so I won't take any more time other than to say, please ask questions. This is really an opportunity to get all of the information, and you can do this throughout by using the chat box. At the end of the session, we'll kind of round up all the questions that we've heard, and so please keep them coming, and we'll get to them at the end. But also finally, thank you all for taking the time out to join us today. I know that everyone's working on very busy schedules right now. What should have been a nice, relaxing come back to work after the summer, it has for many people been an absolute tsunami. So thank you all for joining us. I'll be back at the end for your questions, but for now, over to you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Katie. Great. So to get us kicked off, you heard at the start, our vision for this work is very much a global commitment to work towards zero impact from fibre fragmentation from textiles to the natural environment by 2030. So very much framing the work that we're going to be going through today. So 10 years on from when this topic first started to come through in research as an emerging issue related to the textile and clothing industry, we are both recognising the phenomenal progress that has been made, the stakeholders that have painlessly provided their support to this work, but also defining a new approach that both recognises and supports the scaling and expediting to ensure impact can actually be made. I'd like to name check a few orgs and individuals, but also recognise this work has been possible through a much wider support network, which I know many of you on the call today have been part of. So in no particular priority, to the University of Leeds, to the TMC board under the steerage of our chair, Phil Patterson, the TMC members and cross-industry stakeholders that have provided in-kind support to this work time and time again. Finally, to the Nature Conservancy for their catalytic funding that have enabled us to put this commitment and roadmap out today. So on the screen today, you can see where we are now, but today really marks the point where we shift gears. We look to a new approach to providing a more transparent and collaborative platform that is scaled across a broader industry outreach. We have experience and we can see what is needed. And we are not starting from zero, but we'll bring into this an array of assets from TMC that can be developed further upon. We have an ear today of a diversity of stakeholders, and we'll be using this as a call to action for your active participation. So stay tuned, that call to action will be coming. So next slide, please. So today we're introducing the Microfibre 2030 commitments and roadmap, and I'd like to start by laying out the interconnectivity between TMC, the commitment and the roadmap. So TMC still remains the legal entity behind this work. The Microfibre 2030 commitment becomes our framework through which we will deliver by building on our combined achievements to date and deliver impactful results at the necessary pace. Then the Microfibre roadmap becomes the transparent and aligned agenda populated with clear targets and milestones, with a place and space to be reactive as needed by the science at the root of the understanding of the topic. Next slide, please. So we're all too familiar, sadly, with the images like this one on our screen, and the textile industry is increasingly under the lens from the public who associate this to the larger plastic issue. We know that this issue goes deeper, and it is the unseen fibres from our industry, both synthetic and natural, that are causing the environmental impact none of us would like to be responsible for. I personally was drawn to this topic as I felt we each had a responsibility to do the best that we possibly could do, and the power of the united on such a complex topic was far greater than that of us as an individual. I personally cannot confess to even coming close to understanding and supporting each of these areas of the challenge, but what TMC can do is to offer a space and place to facilitate the collective power to make the change that's actually needed. There is an urgent need to position this topic within the larger sustainability agenda and enable a no regrets decision to be made. We all have something to offer, whether we are a consumer asking and challenging the brands and retailers to do more on their behalf, an activist that's fighting a cause and raising the profile, a manufacturer wanting to trailblaze change with the influence of affecting so much from the root cause level upwards and then back through the supply chain, the brand that can use product as a consumer-facing poster to what change can actually look like, and the regulators that are responding to the public pressure with a number of measures designed to stimulate innovation and impact. The funders who can see the bigger picture and understand the need to support ahead of it being too late. And then the employees, the part that they want to play in their day jobs in being part of a collective power to develop product in better ways for a better future. So we can demonstrate our alignment to the broader sustainability agenda in addition to the work being led by other initiatives, so that we're not duplicating existing efforts. We also have an opportunity to join forces and enhance sector work on related programs such as ZDHC, product design for circularity, preferred material targets, etc. And by adding evidence-based insights on microfibres and the mitigation opportunities in product specifications and manufacture, we can integrate mitigation actions into a much wider set of industry activity. So next slide, please. So there's no question we need alignment, and now is the right time for that. So as we launch the Microfibre commitment and roadmap, we're really looking to amplify that alignment and close the gaps between the disparity of topic information. So when we look to collaborate, we are already collaborating with organisations with similar outlooks, shared tools and agendas, where our microfibre expertise can strengthen their already established tools, resources and outputs. We're not looking to recreate the wheel, yet provide our niche topic expertise where it makes most sense within the bigger picture. So you can see on the screen there organisations that we're already collaborating with. So ZDHC, AATCC and RAP, just to name a few. And then when we look to amplification, these are very much membership-based organisations who have a far-reaching network and they can work as ambassadors for the topic. We can provide very specific knowledge that can be disseminated across a much larger stakeholder group. And again, examples on the screen of the organisations that we're working with, such as Textile Exchange, the European Outdoor Group, and Outdoor Industry Association in the US. Then when we move to influencing, really what we're looking for here is transparency and the ability to influence at the policy level. We need to reduce the gap between active research and industry activities and influence the agenda of those that are working on policy. And then when we look to our planned outreach, we very much have a vision to work with other organisations that have sustainability at the core of their agendas, where we can hopefully work closer together to actually support on the microfibre topic. And under this new framework, we see opportunities to really strengthen this with organisations like Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Global Fashion Agenda, SAC and HIG, Accelerating Circularity, UNFCCC, Fashion Pact. You know, there's a number of them. So if you're out there, please reach out. We would love to find a way to work more closely with you. So we really identify that this roadmap has a niche framework and cannot own everything. We really don't want to own everything, yet it needs to also support roadmap needs in other topics such as carbon and circularity. So we're really looking for that alignment and how we can actually work closer together. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So let's shift gears a little bit here and look at your role as a signatory and the benefits that this work actually provides back to you and your organisations. As signatories, you can expect various different support mechanisms. So if we turn to resources and tools first, we're not starting from ground zero. If you're new to this today, you'll have access to the current TMC resources that our TMC members have been working with over the last couple of years. Your tools and resources will be bookended by the TMC microfibre data portal, which you'll hear more about later, which we'll use to provide data analysis and input into understanding. And at the other end of that, the Microfibre Knowledge Hub, which provides the dissemination platform in order to get the work out to you. So you'll really get value from day one. The signatures, you have a platform for active involvement, and we're looking for champions to take on board an element of this work and drive it through active participation in task teams, steering groups, etc. And then when we move to the communication and reporting, we want to make this as transparent as possible in order to influence a larger part of the textile industry. We are doing a lot with very little. And we want to make you much more of an active part of this. And we'll be providing more information to you, as I say, through things like the Knowledge Hub, tools and resources that we'll provide on an ongoing basis. Next slide, please. If there's anybody, yeah, thank you for muting, that's super helpful. Okay, so if we click through the first couple, please, Rachel. At the core of the commitment is the delivery to the roadmap. So let's take a look in more detail. So basically, there's going to be 3 levels of roadmap. Tier 1, the simplest view, which you're going to see on the screen here. Very much the public-facing view that is the kind of first go-to area to find information. The second, Tier 2, will be also public-facing, and we'll go into that in more detail in a minute. And then Tier 3 will be the working detail that's utilised by the task teams to get into the real nuts and bolts of what's happening on a more regular basis. So if we look to the one that you can see on the screen here, you've very much got going through the core of the roadmap, the elements that are consistent to all of the work. So you've got the understanding fragmentation, the research elements, and you've got the mitigating fragmentation, and those will be ongoing understandings of how we are influencing the work. So if we click on to 2021, you will see the delivery in 2021. Obviously, today we are launching the roadmap and commitment. You'll also expect a line topic understanding as we get further into the delivery. And then root cause textile research will be shared with the signatories. So as I said before, those that are new to us will have access to the available resources that we've got at the moment. And also within 2021, the development of the manufacturing resources. If we go on to 2022, You'll see here that we're starting to scale our signatories to get larger influence across the industry. We will launch a process to test and report microfibre loss from the manufacturing area, and we'll also be piloting the Microfibre Knowledge Hub within 2022. If we move on from there, you will see in 2023, we're starting to be providing reporting back out to the industry, and we will be establishing a fibre fragmentation baseline and also launching of the Microfibre Knowledge Hub in 2023. There'll also be a call to action to the sector to start using the Knowledge Hub to help with the mitigation of fragmentation. If we move on from there, thank you. As you can see, as we go to 2025, again, scaling signatories. And if we go on to 2027, scaling signatories further and having 60% adoption rate within our remit. Ultimately, by 2030, we are looking to attract 250 signatories. We will have a workable knowledge hub and global rating system that can be adopted by the sector. And we are looking ultimately to have 80% of our signatories adopt and implement mitigation limits by this point in time. So that's very much tier 1. And we're going to turn now to tier 2 to provide you a little bit more detail. So at this point, I believe in the chat, we're going to be posting a link to where we do invite you to click on and have a look directly at the document tier 2 level. This is a large document. We can't do it justice by putting it on the screen here today. So really want you to have a feel for it and use your cursors, etc., to expand and contract as needed as I talk you through it. So how do we navigate this? I think the first thing I want to point out are the pillars. So if you go to the left-hand side, you'll see 3 areas down the left, and those are what we're calling our pillars. There's 3 sections: 1, aligning the sector; 2, understanding fragmentation; and 3, mitigating fragmentation. These have been designed to be mutually supportive of each other, but also work in isolation with regards to the work that's required in each of them. If I tell you a little bit about each of them and what the intent is of the work there, the aligning the sector is very much the backbone or the workhorse of the roadmap. It will provide us the targets, the milestones, the reporting, the baselines, etc. Without this, it's very difficult for us to actually develop the work in an accountable way and a measurable way. So a very important part of the work that we're actually doing. The second pillar, the understanding fragmentation, is very much the research arm and is continual throughout the whole process of the roadmap. And this will really give us the depth and the credibility that the work actually requires to prevent any kind of no regrets kind of situation. It's also the work that we have created over the last few years and has provided the legacy where we're at today. The third pillar is the mitigating fragmentation, and this, for most people, is where they really want to be working. They want to be working on the solutions, and people have an urgency to fast track to this area. This area is only really possible if we've got the other 2 pillars well in place and resourced. But this really is where we can start to look at the mitigation activities, whether that's in manufacturing or different, design of materials, etc. So hopefully now you can kind of see how those 3 pillars are kind of interconnected. We move then onto the targets, and our ultimate target for 2030, as I just explained to you in the last slide, is to get 80% of signatories signed up and utilising these measures. And you can start to see how the targets and the milestones carry across from left to right on the roadmap, ultimately with the 2030 targets on the right-hand side. So then, as far as content, what are we actually delivering? You can start to see for each of the years, you can work your way down and see the actual deliverables that we're intending for each of those areas. So some quite, carefully put together areas of work that will be mutually supportive of each other and enable us to get to the depth that's actually required as we're doing this work. You will see, as you've got time to go into more detail on this roadmap, you'll see that intentionally we have not included some areas, and I just want to highlight those just so to manage expectations of what we are expecting to work on within the remit of this. You will not see anything directly related to wastewater treatment plants, neither white goods or detergents or any specific consumer-facing work. That doesn't mean to say it's not important, but we just wanted to make sure that this roadmap was very focused and we were able to actually deliver against it. So I would very much welcome anybody from those industries that are working on roadmaps that could actually work well alongside this to please get in touch. So yes, so there's a lot of information in there, and I think in the essence of time today, I'm not going to go through all of the details, but really ask you to take some time to work through it and really understand it, and know that in some of these areas on here, especially the ones that are associated to task teams that we'll talk about later, there's going to be a third level of roadmap to go into the detail of how we'll actually be delivering against them. So if we could move on to the next slide, and I'm going to pass over to Tara here to take us through the next steps. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Well, I'm sure anybody listening who's considering joining the initiative will be keen to hear what the signatory commitment actually involves. There's 5 elements to signatory commitment, from advocating through to mitigating and ultimately reporting our achievements. Each one of these elements is important, and the collective commitment is bookended by that of advocacy and reporting, which all signatories will do, so that we can elevate the work and share progress with the sector. So depending on which of the signatory bands you fit into, you'll have varying levels of commitment against the other 3 areas of understanding, participating and mitigating. So let me take each of these into more detail. Moving on to advocacy. Next slide. So much of the ultimate success of the roadmap and the topic progress is going to be enabled by clear, consistent advocacy and communication across our networks, whether it be engaging partner businesses and suppliers, educating consumers, supporting regulatory and policy dialogue. We've all got a role to play in ensuring our industry relationships are really connected into this work. And we know, as Sophie's been acknowledging, there are many roadmaps, tools, resources and working groups focused on different but specific agendas around the sector. And for fibre fragmentation, we want to find ways to make our work transparent in support of the wider community in delivering the wider sector goals. So together, the aim is to build stronger, mutually supportive industry networks and outcomes. And I'm just going to hand now to Trudy.
Hi, yes. So one of the big things for us is really building on our understanding of fibre fragmentation by building a research data portal. So in prior years, the majority of TMC data was generated from internal testing, which at times could place bottlenecks in some of the key areas. And it was also not fully representative of the diversity of material needed by our members in the larger industry. There's also a need for clear, concrete direction back to the industry, which has been intensifying. And we see many research papers that can put out bold statements, but on minimal input of data. So the need for suitable, scalable data on which to draw analysis was appraised. And we have identified outputs as being either hypothesis, trend, indication, or statement based on the level of data held. With the TMC test method developed and delivered, this led us to develop the Microfibre data portal. This is a tool where detailed fabric specifications and test results are uploaded, they're anonymized and saved. And as the data within the portal scales and grows, the ability to reach confidence levels needed for bigger statements becomes a greater reality. The combined force of each signatory's individual anonymized data can be collectively benefited by the larger signatory community and broader through the industry. Sophie, you're going to explain a bit more.
Thank you. Sorry, it's that classic mute issue. So we have very much a call to action to the signatories, and you'll see on the screen there that we've actually started to identify what our ask is back to you with regards to testing. What we will be asking as we move to the new signatory model is a commitment from signatories to provide testing that we can utilise into the data portal. We've created this great platform that Trudy spoke about, and what we can do now is really scale it to provide the data analysis and the dissemination back to you as signatories. We've kept this very minimal in order to get this started. So we're asking small brands for a minimum of 5 tests per year, up to 10 tests per year for larger brands. but we're already finding a lot of our members are testing more than that, and really we would love to see more than that. But we're just setting this as an expectation for those that aren't able to test so much. With our research and manufacturing organisations, we again are setting a minimum, but would value anything above and beyond that. And what you can see here is one test typically comprises of 8 specimens, and that is standard in the test method that we're working with as we upload it into the data portal. So this is really important for this data or this information dissemination back to the signatories, and we really feel it's an important part of moving forwards. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Tara. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I think we are still with you, Sophie, for the task teams.
Okay, I'll unmute. Thank you for that, Tara. Sorry. So if we move on to task teams, we are setting up task teams to help us work in more depth in key areas that are needing attention. So the fibre fragmentation topic is a massive topic, and we can break it down into certain areas and enable the task teams to get into the depth that's actually required there. So the task teams really become the engine room of the roadmap. It enables us to draw from a diverse set of expertise to drive the research, support the direction and the output of the work, and offer a modular approach and ability to flex as topics need to come in and out of the roadmap. Also gives the alignment to the bigger picture through the steerage of the technical committee and the steering group and the roadmap targets. With regards to support that we're providing to the task teams, we will have the advisory group and the technical committee that will provide support to the task teams, and then also TMC will be providing the secretariat support as needed. We'll also, through our technical team, be able to provide literature review into those task teams, and also as we're scaling that data in the data portal, be able to do the data back to the task teams so that that appropriate data analysis can happen in very niche areas of topic areas. We'll also be able to draw from expertise from a much larger topic network by extending the invite out to those task team participants. So as far as getting started, what we will be doing first is in the next few days, we'll be putting out information of how people can actually apply to get involved in task teams. And in a minute, I'll tell you about the topics that we've got available. Once we've got participants identified, we will be looking for kickoffs as soon as we can. And one of the first activities within those task teams is to define that level 3, that tier 3 roadmap, so that the more detailed information about what needs to happen over the next couple of years with regards to delivering outputs. We'll also, in those kickoff meetings, be looking to see where additional funding needs are actually needing to be taken care of. So what you can expect from these task teams with regards to delivery, the Microfibre Knowledge Hub really becomes the main platform for dissemination. But within that, we're going to have a flow of activities from that kind of elementary topic understanding to very bold statements that go back out to industry. So at the entry level, we can provide a quick fix and fact-finding information with one-pagers and snapshots. And then that is worked on further as we get into more depth of the topic. Then partway through, we'll be able to devise a call to action back to signatories so they know very clearly what information we're requiring through testing. And then that information can go into the data portal and be used to provide support to the final delivery and dissemination. So this is a framework for delivery, and we're not fit all topics, but it helps to manage expectations of the kind of the way that we're going to be working. So if we move on to the next slide, please, and I'll tell you a little bit about the topics. So with regards to the topics that we have available, very much split into 3 areas, the triggers of fragmentation, the impact and mitigation, and then the development of tools and resources. So you can see on the screen there the kind of areas that we'll be working into. So with regards to triggers, areas such as, how does the influence of coloration processing affect fibre fragmentation, or how does the mechanical finishing, for example. So a lot of these areas have been kick-started already by the work of TMC, and we'll be using that as the kind of baseline to start from, and then getting into more detail as required. Then on the impact and mitigation, you'll see some topics, biodegradation and manufacturing, for example, also areas that have been kick-started by TMC, and then some new areas such as toxicology, for example, that require a deeper dive on information, fact-finding. Development of tools and resources, you've heard us speak a lot about the Knowledge Hub, and also we feel that there's a body of work that's required around future needs of test methodology. So as I said, there'll be links provided to all participants today in the next few days about how to actually get involved here. So at this point, I think I am passing back to Tara. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sophie. So mitigating actions, I know this is an area that all stakeholders are really super keen to evidence is what the practical things you're doing to mitigate fibre fragmentation. And the good news is that you can start very quickly on this activity. So there's manufacturing guidance. Brands can make a start by engaging with the manufacturing based on what they're already doing in readiness for agreeing some mitigation activity. And we'll have manufacturing guidance refined in the end of this year, and it will be updated throughout the life of the programme, so that we're constantly adding resources there, building awareness on implementation of filtration technologies, for example, and where we can take a consistent approach at the manufacturing level. So the work's going to expand in that area. And then the Knowledge Hub, when it launches, will be the opportunity to really inform your work at every level. So that will launch with a pilot in 2022. And it'll be a platform that becomes a level setting for the topic. It will give you 24/7 access to the knowledge you need to take effective mitigation actions, supporting the research community, being accessible for information to policymakers, ideally aligning them with the approach we're taking in industry, strengthening our materials research and development resources so that changes can be made at the root cause of fragmentation, and also support you in communication, so support you in your messaging to your customer and your stakeholders with communication resources. And then from 2025, we anticipate being able to build a global rating system for fragmentation, so we can level set more clearly across the industry and create a very consistent approach. It's not been possible to do this so far from the volume of data that we've had, but the volume of data as it scales through the testing commitments of the commitment signatories, this is going to make it feasible. Next slide.
Oh, can we click on another slide, please? I think we're a little out of sync here. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
And then finally, there will be a reporting expectation for signatories. So in order that we can demonstrate progress and accountability in a transparent manner, reporting is going to support our ability to secure external funding to further the work. And it won't be onerous. It'll be very focused on the actions and activities, with the bulk of reporting work actually coming through the task teams driving the topic agendas. So signatories will report annually on their contribution to understanding fibre fragmentation through the number of TMC tests that they're submitting onto the data portal, and through the contribution of specific expertise they may be able to add to task group participation or topic research activities. You'll also report on mitigation activity through your rollout and adoption of manufacturing tools and guidance as they become available. And we'd also like to signatories to report on advocacy and engagement, because the network introductions and amplification of the work we know takes a lot of time and effort and does need to be recognised. Next slide, please. So now we've had an introduction to the commitment and the roadmap, we're going to hear from Sophie in conversation with Tom Dempsey as they explore the context behind the work and some of the wider perspectives on the initiative. Sophie, as you know and have already been hearing from, is our Executive Director at the Microfibres Consortium, and Tom Dempsey is the California Oceans Programme Director at the Nature Conservancy. So we really want to extend our thanks to the Nature Conservancy at this point for catalyst funding that's enabled this launch to be possible today. In a moment, we'll play the interview, and it's pre-recorded and will play for 20 minutes. And we hope that you will stay on after the interview to rejoin the call and hear what to expect following today's launch, exactly how you can get involved, and we'll open to questions. Okay, so let's hear from Sophie and Tom in conversation. Let's play the video.
Okay, no sound. What I suggest in the essence of time here is that we provide the recording afterwards if we can't get the sound to work, with the follow-up from today's meeting. So apologies if the sound isn't working. Okay, it worked earlier when we did a test, so I'm not quite sure what has happened there.
Don't know if we want to just give it a moment and
one more try.
Sophie, do we want to go to a few of the Q&As? Well, and some people can look in the background to see if they can get the sound working, because we've had a few questions so far.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Katie. If you wouldn't mind jumping in with some of the questions, that would be great. Thank you.
We've had a few questions already, and I think they're quite obviously by topic. So I might not read them out in order, but we will make sure that we cover all the questions. So the first question is that if I understand correctly, the commitment is to adopt and use the rating system, but will each company define their own goal using the rating system, or will TMC define common goals that signatories need to adopt?
Yeah, the TMC will be setting a kind of a standard with regards to the rating system. The rating system is one part of the roadmap delivery, so it's not the ultimate part of it. So we will be working in that. I haven't got exactly the dates in front of me at the moment, but in the specified part in the roadmap, we'll be working together, and there'll be a task team around that to kind of define exactly what that rating system is, how it comes together, and what the kind of targets are that we're giving the individual brands and retailers. But I think, you know, if people are very interested in that, there'll be a place and space for them to actively get involved if they want to have some sort of steerage to how that comes together.
Hopefully that's answered your question, Linda Rang, who asked that question. The second question is kind of a general question again around the commitment and roadmap. And this question is from Toby Connock from Eunomia. And he asks that if he understands correctly, will this mainly focus on fragmentation during manufacture, or will this look to cover fragmentation during use and waste management as well?
Yeah, so as we kind of move forwards, it can also incorporate the in-use phase as well. So at the moment, we're looking at fragmentation both during manufacture and also at the kind of laundry level as well. So the TMC test method that has been developed is looking at the loss that actually happens at the material level, so after it's been manufactured. And we also have the stakeholder group at the moment that is looking at the manufacturing level. So I think as we go forwards with the roadmap, we have an ability to kind of, as I said before, flex as we need to. But one thing that is out of scope of this roadmap as it stands today is the wastewater treatment plant level. So that one is out of scope. Although if people are on the call that want to have a further conversation about that, I would welcome you to get in touch.
Thanks, Sophie, and hopefully that's answered your question, Toby. And then we've had a number of questions around kind of test methodology and kind of really quite test method specific questions. So there's a few questions around, will test methods be standardized? To what extent are methods across different test centers comparable? Have testing agencies been identified? So there's a lot of questions there, but also, will funding be made available to cover the costs of testing, or will brands shoulder the cost themselves? Yeah,
so there's a lot of bits in that to kind of pick away at and kind of answer. I think that would be a whole webinar in itself, and I think very topical coming from you, Katie, because I know the work that you're doing as well at the moment. So I don't know if you want to jump in on any of that, or if you want me to kind of kickstart. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I can do that actually, and then you can fiddle with the video in the background.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that there's been a lot of work around developing test methods, standardization, but also global harmonization of test methods. There are currently 3 test methods that are kind of available or in progress. There's, of course, the TMC method, which is available through a number of third-party test houses, which you can find the information to on the website. So that the TMC test method you can already use. You can get in contact with the kind of service providers and go ahead with that. But there's also been a kind of globalization effort around a CEN and ISO standard, but also an AATCC standard. And we can confirm that there's been a lot of round-robin trials, and that the methods are pretty much identical. There's a few slight variations, but they are all providing the same results on the same fabrics. So yes, they're comparable. Yes, they are already available. Yes, testing agencies have been identified. And then the final question, I think I'd hand back to TMC to answer around if there's any funding available, or should the brands cover the cost themselves.
Yeah, great. Thank you for answering that, Katie, and sorry to put you on the spot. As far as testing costs, what we've done is we've put together those, the overview that we put on the screen about how many tests we're expecting from signatories. That is quite a minimal expectation of what we would like to see come forwards. We would ask the brand or retailer or the person, the signatory involved, to actually bear the cost of that. When TMC first started, we did all the testing ourselves, which became quite quickly a bottleneck to the research, which wasn't productive for the kind of outward dissemination of information. What we're trying to do here is also manage any expectation from like NGOs or people that are requesting much higher amounts of testing. So if we can actually demonstrate, you know, your testing through quite a minimal input in this way, hopefully we're able to keep the requests for much larger testing out of the way. Also, when we ask for testing, it doesn't necessarily need to be in a third-party lab. We are working closely with third-party labs and have them as part of our membership currently. But if there's any brands, retailers, manufacturers that would like to do the testing themselves, we do have an accreditation process as well. So that's also something that's quite feasible. So I think that's answered pretty much all of those testing related questions, although I'm sure there's plenty more of them. If there's anything that we haven't covered, we'll be capturing those questions and making sure that our FAQs are fully updated on the website afterwards. So I'm going to just quickly ask the rest of the team here. I know they've been trying to work to get the sound back up and running on the video. Any luck there, or should we send it on afterwards?
I'm happy to try it if you are.
Yeah.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's great to be with you and everyone.
Yeah, welcome, Tom. Thanks very much for joining us today. And perhaps we can start with a little bit of an introduction from your side.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks so much. It's great to be with you and everyone today. My name is Tom Dempsey. I'm the director of the Oceans Program for the Nature Conservancy of California. So I sit just outside of Monterey, California, where I live. And I work on a whole range of issues, including plastic waste and plastic pollution, but also transforming wild capture fisheries, working on habitat restoration, and working to protect vulnerable island species around the world.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us. Really looking forward to our conversation today. So earlier on in the presentation, as we were launching the roadmap, we set the scene as to why this work was important, but it would be really lovely to get your perspective on what you feel is important to address on the microfiber pollution area now at this point in time.
Yeah, I often think when I'm asked this question about something I read that Maya Angelou wrote, which was, when you know better, do better. And I think we're in a moment right now, particularly around plastic pollution in general, but microfiber leakage in particular, where we know just a lot more about the flows and drivers of that mismanaged leakage, and then also its impacts on natural systems, whether they're freshwater or marine, but also their potential impacts on human health. And since we know better, I think it's time to do better and take action to really stem those flows, finding those meaningful solutions that can work to do that in a way that also is feasible and successful for the industry.
I think very much from the research perspective as well. I think the more we know, the more we need to know, you know, and so yeah, very much the same there. Yeah.
So I was actually interested in how you kind of got involved with this topic. I'm always intrigued by people's personal kind of journeys and how you ended up focusing on this professionally.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was, you know, I've been aware of the topic for quite a long time, especially since about 2011 when the first papers were kind of coming out. But I think it was about 2016 where you started to see the kind of drop-in laundry filters coming out. You know, great idea. And I think they were really kind of grabbing the attention of the consumer. But my kind of textile geek in me really wanted to kind of dig deep and really understand the causes of this, you know, because for a textile, you know, specialist, you can really understand how we're putting these materials together. And if we really understand how we're putting them together, then obviously we can make change with regards to affecting this at the root cause. So I suppose I got really kind of fired up about really being able to influence that change. And that's really what got me started on this journey. And I suppose, you know, you start jumping in there, having a little bit of a dig around, and the more you dig around, you know, you realize you can actually make that change. So that's really what drove me to kind of get started from the beginning.
That's fantastic. And when, remind us when the Microfibre Consortium was actually launched. How did that sort of, how did that happen, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so the Microfibre Consortium, as you know it today, was launched at the end of 2018. So we're still very small. We're a micro business and still growing and kind of forming as that new business. The work that I started in 2017, and I started it with a bit of crowdfunding. So wasn't intending it to get to the scale that it is today, but we started with crowdfunding. And what was really interesting then is the brands and retailers had an eagerness to kind of get involved. So they were actively reaching out and saying, can we get involved? From there, it got too big to handle. You know, I was working on my own. So that's where the European Outdoor Group stepped in and really managed it in the early stages of the consortium, and got it to where we picked up at the end of 2018. So quite a journey, but we've done a lot in a very small amount of time. So great to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe that bridges to the next question that I had, which was, how do you see this roadmap as kind of a key milestone in the evolution of the Microfibre Consortium? It's great to hear that sort of origin story, and this feels like a really important moment for the organization and for the work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it very much stems from, you know, what we've been able to do in the last few years. And really, you know, we're always wanting to kind of look back and see what has worked, what hasn't worked, where do we need to go, and what needs to happen to make it work. And I think, you know, we looked at, you know, the amount of interest that was coming from across the industry, from externally, from other stakeholders, a lot of requests for people to have more and more information. And we couldn't provide that in the framework that TMC was offering at the time. So I think it made perfect sense to work on the roadmap, work on the commitment, enable us to scale, but scale in a way that was very manageable. It was managed against, you know, clear targets, clear vision, with milestones, and also providing this platform that a lot more people could actually get involved. You know, the TMC, you know, the membership is fantastic, and we think we have a lot of members. We've got about 63 at the moment, you know, which is not that many when you look at how big the clothing industry is. You know, I think by putting the commitment in place now and the roadmap in place now, we have the ability to affect far more of the clothing industry. So I think it's a really exciting time, and I think, yeah, we can't wait. It has to be done now, really.
That's fantastic. Excuse me. And I've heard you talk before about kind of the importance of aligning the textile sector, and how essential that is to making some of the changes that are included in the kind of achieving some of the commitments that are included in the roadmap. What do you mean by that? Why is it important to align the textile sector, and what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, you're right. I talk about aligning the sector quite a lot here, and I think it really is important. And I think from day one, we saw disparity with regards to lots of people working on great research, but from different starting points with regards to methodology. So that was the first kind of warning sign, really, in a way. We knew then if we could align on the test method and have as many people as possible working from that same kind of ground level of understanding, then we're going to get a lot more learning, we're going to get it a lot quicker and be able to influence change. So that was the first point where we felt that alignment was really needed. The second one, and this really much comes through on the roadmap, is if we can align with regards to the targets and the milestones we're working, we can see that progress and we can map that progress so much better. So I think, you know, having that single agenda that people can work to is going to make it a lot easier for people to get involved. Leveraging expertise to prevent that kind of duplication. You know, and this is, again, an area where, you know, we don't want to be duplicating work. We haven't got enough time to duplicate work. And then finally, and I will finish on this point, you know, we need to see a top-down alignment from policy all the way back to raw materials, all the way through the supply chain. What we don't want to see happen is we don't want to see a niche area of agendas in the policy level and then a niche agenda in the clothing sector without that coming together and that commonality. What we would love to see, and we really hope this is going to happen through the roadmap, is we can have that common agenda, and we know that when policy comes out, it has been done from a place where we've already provided the research into it. So when we're providing that research back to the brands and retailers, supply chain partners, they are doing it knowing that the whole system is lining up. So that is what really, I find very exciting in this. I would hate to see we got to the end of the work and you've got these, this disparity of agendas. But if we can start from the same place and really be supportive from the beginning all the way through, then we've got some really good opportunities ahead of us, I think. Yeah. Right, we're going to stop it there, I'm afraid, everybody. We're going to provide you the recording afterwards with the follow-up from today's meeting. There's a couple of minutes left on the interview, and I do encourage you to listen to them. But in the essence of time, we want to wrap up and make sure that you've got the resources and everything you need to Thanks very much. How to engage with us. So back to Tara, please. Next slide, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So who needs to participate in this? We're really looking for participation from brands and retailers, and in doing so, testing materials, uploading results to the data portal and contributing to the scaling of data that we've been talking about. And then as insights grow by material, brands and retailers then have the ability to start applying those learnings to product development and provide steering to your suppliers. From the research and manufacturing sector, we're looking for partners to participate by contributing to the research from both the purely academic level, but also right through to the commercial manufacturing level. So depending on your organisational type, you'd be contributing to the understanding of the research. And if you're a manufacturer, you'll then be able to carry that research learning through into implementing manufacturing changes. We will also have a small number of affiliate organisations participating as signatories. We'll select those based on their ability to contribute and amplify the work. And we have made some provision here for non-profits to be able to participate in kind rather than paying a fee. Next slide. Next slide, please. So today really is a call to action for you to join this commitment and get involved. In the next few days, everybody who was registered for today's webinar will receive a link to the recording that you can share, links to a number of resources, and we'll send out a sign-up form if you're ready to join us. And we'll also keep adding to the Q&A on our website as well to make sure we're answering your questions. So we'll open up opportunities for those that want to participate in task teams. Please do advocate for us by speaking to your own business leaders and your network, encouraging other businesses to sign up and start signposting the work and this collective agenda through your networks. Talk about what you've heard today on social, on LinkedIn, use our hashtag. The ultimate success of this work also will be conditional to the depth of funding we're able to obtain. So we're going to be posting funding needs and opportunities specific to key topics on our website Fund Us page. We'll host a Fund Us webinar later this week, 3:30 on Thursday, British time, on the 23rd of September, where you can find out more. And if you can't make it, reach out to us and we'll send you the recording for that. Next slide. Later on today, as we finish up this session and wrap up the launch event, we're going to send out our launch report that will go live on our website. So do download that because it's full of detail that's going to, round your understanding of the commitment and for you to take away and share with your networks. That's a really great resource. So following the launch, this is what the next couple of months looks like. Over the next 30 days, we're going to continue to drive communication to raise interest across the sector and the broader stakeholders. Please do help us with that. We're going to welcome applications for our advisory committee and the task teams, and we'll be busy onboarding the new signatories and starting our fundraising activities. That will progress to over the next couple of months, confirming the makeup of the advisory committee and the initial task teams that will start working together. We'll be strengthening our own team and putting resources in to support the work. We'll be scaling up signatories and continuing to build funding resources. And then ultimately, within the next 90 days, the work will be actively underway. So matching the funding to the specific research and the mitigation activities. So for the remaining time, I'm going to hand back to Katie to facilitate questions and help us wrap up the session. And the presenting team will stay on for a few minutes after the close. So if you're not dashing off or you do still have a question that hasn't been answered, hang around and we'll do our best to get to them. If not, of course, we'll add them to our Q&A on the website following the event.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Tara, for that great bit of information. We do have a few more questions, which I think will probably take us up to the time. A quick question is, do existing members need to join again? And that's from Stefan Seidel from Puma.
No, so as the communication that went out to members, I think last week, existing members, unless we've heard from them, will automatically transfer across to being signatories. So that's all in place there. Thank you for your question.
There was a question from Audron. Are there other such initiatives globally, and if there are, would your work be aligned with that?
Yeah, I think one of the key reasons why we're doing this in the first place is we saw lots of great pieces of work, but no one overarching specific microfiber roadmap. So we would very much welcome any outreach from organisations that want to be part of this or feel that they have got other initiatives that are very similar. I think first and foremost, we want that alignment. I know I keep saying it, I sound like a broken record, but please do reach out if you do hear of anything else. But as far as we're aware, there's nothing to this scale specifically on the microfibres topic.
Thanks, Sophie, that was very clear. There is a comment from Toby from Eunomia, which is around the kind of eco-design directive. And I think, Toby, I would suggest that you get in touch with me directly at the European Outdoor Group, because I can definitely answer that question around that. There are two questions from Nick, and he says this is a very impressive structure with a high level of participation and time-bound goals. Did you take this format from another initiative? And if not, have you considered promoting this as best practice?
Oh gosh, thank you. I'd say that's not really two questions. Thank you very much, Nick, for your kind words. What we've done is we've tried to take the best parts that we can from other initiatives, but it hasn't necessarily come from one specific one. As far as the time frame, we wanted to make sure that we were not off on a complete tangent with regards to deliveries. So the 2030 timeframe was really important for us to make sure we aligned with other initiatives. As far as the way that we've put this together, no, I think a lot of it has been driven by learnings. You know, TMC has been on a massive learning curve over the last few years. We've done a lot of work, and I think that has really put us in a good position to know what is hopefully the right direction to take from this point forwards. I can't guarantee it's definitely the right way, but we can be reactive to things as they happen. And I think that's what TMC has demonstrated so far, is that ability to be reactive and move quickly against the topic as needed. So yeah, so I can't think there's anything else that we haven't necessarily taken a template and dropped our bits into it. It's kind of like really taking best practice from a number of different initiatives.
And I think just to say, Nick's compliments were a lot longer than I actually, I didn't read them all out because they were quite long, and we've had another comment saying that Nick's comment, they second Nick's comment. So there's lots of very positive feedback on what we've seen today already. One question around the kind of logistics, and that is, how long are the commitments for task teams? If a brand's internal teams are not available until Q1 2022, would they have to wait until the next cycle to apply for a task team, or is it possible to kind of be a little more
no
they get involved?
I think what we're trying to do is we're putting terms of reference in place, so it's clear what we're expecting, but they're not necessarily legally binding documents. I think we ask, and sorry, somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's a 2-year term that we're asking for, just so we've got some continuity of conversation, continuity of work that's actually happening. If people can't join us till later, I think it's very much an open door policy. If they've got skill sets and knowledge to provide into this, we want to hear from them. If they want to get involved just to kind of, you know, be an onlooker, then perhaps not so much place and space available. But, you know, we really are looking for that active participation. So if the person or the organisation is right, please reach out. We would love to hear from you. And also just to that point, not all topics are equal, as I said before, and they will all be starting at slightly different times. So there'll be different priorities set. And also some of that would be pegged to the availability of funding as well.
There's one question from Anne Charlotte at Rise, which I suggest that we can kind of answer offline. There's one more question from an outside organisation, and that is around, I suppose the testing lab can be part of the task group. Please confirm if yes, and if so, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, I very much would like to see a task team around method development. You know, we've spoken about the method as you know it today, but I think what this topic deserves is a kind of a medium to long term look at where methodologies need to go. So I think that task team would very much value a third party lab participant as part of that, because I think it's really important that it's not seen as purely an academic methodology, but it has that kind of bridge into the commercial realm as well. So yeah, very important. Please get in touch.
I think with the final, there are 2 questions remaining, which I think your plan is to put the answers on the website, Sophie, that's correct, or?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
We're going to end the Q&A session here in the kind of thought of time management. Thank you, Sophie and TMC team, for doing such a wonderful job of presenting this very, very ambitious but very well thought out piece of work. And now I'd just like to say over to Sophie for the closing words from today.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thanks for chairing us through today's session. I know timing has been quite tight. Yes, first and foremost, thank you very much to the TMC team and Flourish team for all the hard work to get us to this launch today, and to all the stakeholders and people that are continually providing their in-kind time to enable this to actually happen. You will see our contact details on the screen there, so please do stay in touch. We have launched today, but we have not finished. We have just started the journey, and bear with us over the next couple of weeks as we kind of continue to provide information to you. In the next few days, you'll be provided with the recording and follow-up from today's session, links to signing up as task team participants, advisory group members, and also the other thing, a real takeaway is the end of today, you will find the supporting report that goes alongside today's presentation live on our website. Really do encourage you to have a look at that report, pass it through your networks, so you can share with your colleagues what is absolutely happening here. So with that, I'm going to close and just say thank you to everybody. It has been a really exciting journey, and very much looking forward to the next